Happy Saturday. I would like to begin this episode by saying that, the episode you are about to see is the result of losing a bet. So this is a cautionary tale. I firmly believed that the Steelers would take at least till week 3 to pull their normal Steelers shenanigans, but unfortunately I was wrong, and they decided to do it week 2 against the Seahawks. So, Cash and Dad, I have lost the bet. Therefore, I am fulfilling my end of the bet. So tonight, we are going to be talking the history of the Dallas Cowboys, a team that everybody knows and some of us love. That said, I even went completely into it. Found, weirdly, the only Texas beer in the area outside of Foster's, which weirdly is not Australian, I don't think ever even was Australian, actually produced in Plano, Texas. But also it makes sense for the season. If it will focus, there we go. There we go. From Spoetzl Brewery, this is Shiner Oktoberfest, a Märzen-style beer. Where is the alcohol percentage? 5.7. And the Oktoberfest, it goes hand in hand with the Munich Oktoberfest. Usually, more malty beer and served in great quantities in thick mugs like that to maintain the cold temperature. I know this is going to be okay because this year's release just came out, so not a single worry to be had there. Watch as a mongoose jumps out of it and ends me. Okay, no mongoose, we're safe. So we're going to pour that in our Texas beer, and actually I have had stuff from this brewery before. The one that everybody wanted for the longest time was simply called Shiner Bock, which actually isn't a bad beer. Let's take a look. We've got some clear, if only it was bigger, and there was somebody bringing it to me. So, there we go. We have got our Oktoberfest, and real quick, they can call it Oktoberfest. However, if you see the term Oktoberfest beer, and it would be B-I-E-R as it would be in German, that is a Märzen-style beer that is produced in Munich. Other than that, they have to call it simply Oktoberfest. All right, enough of that. We are going to flip this around, and we're going to get into it. Well, we have our Oktoberfest beer. I suppose I should address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm a Steelers fan, grew up in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh, actually, more to the point. And because of that, we have a long history with the Dallas Cowboys, so this episode just pains me. Although, I do have to say, as much as I am loath to admit this, there is a begrudging respect for the Dallas Cowboys after reading their history because, my God, part of their history honestly reads like a movie. So here we have our Oktoberfest beer from Shiner, which is in... Is it actually... I think it's actually called... Where in the world is the Spoetzl Brewery? Shiner, Texas, which unfortunately is nowhere near Dallas. It's, I think, a lot further south, but let's give a smell. Smells like beer, which is a good thing. Little bit of malt, not too much. Other Oktoberfests are a lot more malty, like Sam Adams, very, very malt bomb. But let's see how this is. You know what that would go good with? A gigantic pretzel. But then again, really, what wouldn't go well with a gigantic pretzel? That's a lot lighter than I thought it would be for the Oktoberfest style beer, but actually I've run into some German ones that are, very similar in that regard. It's almost perfectly balanced. Normally you get a lot more of the malt sweetness than the hop bitterness, but this actually is really well balanced. Yeah, I could see myself, I could see a lot of people, myself included, having a bad problem after several of these giant mugs full of beer. I like it. All right, well, let's get into it. I actually, because Julie Farnham and I have been talking about the Chat GPT and Google AI and all that stuff and how it's wrong. Zach, put that up there. I wanted to double check, and I know the answer, so I wanted to see how close Google AI was. I Googled the simple question, you can do it as well. What is the oldest professional football team in Dallas? And as you can see from the graphic that was up there, they were partly right. Partly right. Just remember the key things there. Dallas Texans, 1960, and NFL. Just remember those 3 points. We're going to get into it. I just had to start with that because, swing and a miss. I mean, it was a foul tip. I'll give it a foul tip. Like, barely made contact, but the catcher still got it, and they were out on strikes. For you see, the history of professional football actually began with the Dallas Texans, but a little earlier. It was in 1952. They were a one-year team. I think they were the team that came from the 1951 New York Yanks that played one season. And the majority of the team then went down to Dallas to become part of the inaugural Dallas Texans in the 1952 NFL season. The first 7 games of that was fine. They played it in Dallas, but then the final 5, they couldn't get attendance, so essentially they became a ward of the NFL, were relocated, still kept the name the Dallas Texans, but played the majority of the final 5 games of the 12-game season in Hershey, Pennsylvania, of all places, is where the 1952 Dallas Texans finished off their life. Well, that was the end of their life. The Dallas Texans disbanded after that, and the franchise was given to Baltimore, who then became the Baltimore Colts. And interestingly enough, there were 2 Pro Football Hall of Famers on that 1952 Dallas Texans team. Art Donovan, the first member of the Baltimore Colts, of the Colts organization in general, inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Gino Marchetti, both of whom went on to have an incredible run playing for the Baltimore Colts for the remainder of their career in the late 50s and up into the early 60s. So, football has disappeared from Dallas and weirdly disappeared from Texas in general. From 1953, there was nothing. Then, now's when it starts to get interesting. You know what? It's going to start getting so interesting, I'm going to need a little bit more of this, because a lot of pictures are going to come up there, because there's going to be a lot of names, although when we get later, there's going to be too many names, therefore, no pictures, because I don't want to give enough pause to put up all the names of the coaches that came later. More to that in a moment. Back down to the beer. All right, where are the notes? All right, so we come to the year 1958. That man right there is an oil man by the name of Clint Murchison Jr. He was based in Dallas, and he had petitioned the NFL. Well, no, I'm sorry. There was a first thing. He, in the year 1958, attempted to purchase the then Washington Redskins from the owner at that time, a man by the name of George Preston Marshall. The deal was pretty much finalized, and then at the very last second, Marshall from the Redskins just completely changed the terms of the deal. Murchison freaks out, calls the deal off, and thus was born the rivalry. Now, you have to think that there had been no NFL team south of Washington, D.C. by this point since the Texans left midway through the 1952 season. So for 7 years, essentially, the Redskins had the monopoly on Southern football because that was all they had. So Murchison petitions the NFL to bring in an expansion team and place that team in Dallas. Here's where it gets real funny. At that time, you needed a unanimous vote for any new expansion team. Marshall, because of the previous instance with Murchison calling off the deal at the last second, said that he would never vote to permit a football team in Dallas, Texas. Now, before we get to what led to the creation of the Cowboys, a sip, and then we're going to get interesting. Like I say, it's going to get really interesting. It literally reads like a movie, but it happened. Now, a group of gentlemen have decided that they're tired of it. The NFL is being too strict with their policy, so they're going to create a new football league. And this league was born in the year 1960, the AFL, the American Football League, which gave the current NFL many teams that it has today. The Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, the Denver Broncos, I think, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Chargers. So a lot of different teams. However, one of the teams, Zach, let's start getting ready to put in some pictures. One of the teams that came into the AFL in 1960 were the Dallas Texans. That's their logo there. That color scheme look at all familiar to you? It should. Because that guy right there, one of the co-founders of the AFL and the original owner of the Dallas Texans, is a man by the name of Lamar Hunt. And then after the 1962 season, he took the Dallas Texans to Kansas City, where they became the Kansas City Chiefs. So that is another thing that we can blame on the state of Texas. Now, we get back to the Cowboys. Murchison wants a team in Dallas, an NFL team in Dallas. The AFL is going to be there. The Dallas Texans are going to play football in the 1960 season. Now we are rapidly approaching, in 1959, the owners' meeting and the owners' vote to decide on the expansion teams. Now, man, okay, bear with me, pour yourself a chair and have a seat on a drink, and we're going to have some good ones. Okay, so Marshall and Murchison completely at odds over the Dallas thing. Marshall says, I'm never going to give you a team. I'm never going to vote for you. Unfortunately, what happened? Marshall, in all of his dealings and goings-on, had a falling out with this man, a man by the name, where is it at here, of Barney Breeskin. Barney Breeskin was the band leader for the Washington Redskins. He, in fact, wrote the music for the Redskins fight song, Hail to the Redskins. Interesting side note, which makes it all the more hilarious. The lyrics to the fight song were written by the owner, Marshall. It was written by his wife. The funny thing is, you know who owned the rights to the song? Barney Breeskin. He's now angry at Marshall. He knows what Murchison is doing. He takes the rights to the Redskins fight song, sells them to Murchison, the man who wants to create a team in Dallas, for $2,500. And this is right before the 1959 vote. You know what's going to happen. Murchison comes in to the meeting, walks up to Marshall and says, I own the rights to the Redskins fight song, Hail to the Redskins, and you are not permitted to ever play it. From what I've read, a very long and lengthy and vitriol-filled and explicit-filled tirade followed, but the end result was Murchison then traded the rights to the song back to Marshall and the Redskins in exchange for the one lone dissenting vote that would have kept the Dallas Cowboys from being born. And thus the vote passed unanimously, and in 1960 the Dallas Cowboys were born. There is a begrudging respect I must give to any team that is simply, let's put it honest, quite simply born out of spite. The Dallas Cowboys were born to spite the Washington Redskins. You would expect to see that in a Hollywood movie. But I don't think Hollywood could have even come up with all the minute details. The fact that the fight song was written by the owner's wife, and then all of a sudden is now owned by the guy who wants to start the Dallas Cowboys. It's fantastic. And I have the utmost respect, in a weird way, the utmost respect to Clint Murchison, the original owner and founder of the Dallas Cowboys, doing what he had to do to ensure the team was born, and thus it was born. We're going to take a sip. We're going to look at just a quick overview of the rest of it. I found that part of history very good, but then, the winds of change. Oh, the winds of change. You know they always be blowing. I really wish I hadn't said it earlier, and put the idea of a giant pretzel in my head, because drinking this, all I want is a giant pretzel. And there's nothing I can do about it. Even if I stop the camera, there's actually nothing I could do to remedy the desire for a giant pretzel at this point. That is unfortunate. Now, let us move on to the beginnings, the early years. The Dallas Cowboys are a newly formed team, and what happens when you newly form a team? Well, you have to staff it. So, Murchison, he picks some good ones. First thing he does, he gets the former Los Angeles Rams general manager, a man by the name of Tex Schramm, to become the president and general manager of the newly formed Dallas Cowboys. For the record, Tex Schramm was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the year 1991. The next hire, he hires a former San Francisco 49ers scout by the name of Gil Brandt as the head of player personnel. There's the picture right there of Gil Brandt at his Hall of Fame induction with the class of 2019. And the final one that they hired, the former New York Giants defensive coordinator, a man by the name, right there, the man, the myth, the legend, the fedora, the man by the name of Tom Landry as the head coach. And for nearly 30 years, that trio would be the only trio in charge. By the way, I should also put, for the trifecta, Tom Landry, Pro Football Hall of Fame, class of 1990. So the one thing you can say about Murchison, he knew how to find talent, and that talent knew also how to find talent and coach talent. So from 1960 to 1988, Tom Landry was at the helm of the Dallas Cowboys, creator of the Doomsday Defense, the original one. And in that time span, obviously, new teams, you're not going to do well out of the gate. You're not going to win many games. I don't think the Cowboys won any games in their first season. But the winds of change blew. They started to draft. They picked up some amazing players. The Steelers' rivalry with the Cowboys in the 70s during the Super Bowl era was unlike anything. And it was before my time. I was born in 1982, so most of the players from that era, with like the exception of Mike Webster, who played an additional 297 years, may he rest in peace, most of those players were retired by the time I started getting to the point where I could watch football. But in the time span of Tom Landry et al. Being there, they won 2 Super Bowls, 1971 and 1977, and went to an additional 3 Super Bowls, 1970, 1975, and 1978. 75 and 78, they ran into the Steelers both years. But you look at the team they had, like Tony Dorsett, Roger Staubach, that defense, and the one man, just watching film and hearing my dad talk about him, one man who was an absolute menace to the Steelers, Ed Too Tall Jones, coupled with Randy White. You had some absolutely dominant players. Plus, the Dallas Cowboys at the current time have the only Super Bowl MVP from the losing team, and that was in 1970. It was Chuck Howley, the linebacker for the Cowboys, that was the Super Bowl MVP, despite the Cowboys losing that particular Super Bowl. Now the winds of change, unfortunately, have to blow. The year is 1984, and Murchison has sold the team. He has sold it to this guy here. H.R. Bright went by the nickname Bum, and his 10 business partners. Bright comes in, and for the 1984 season, he sold it right before, and the quote was, appalled by Tom Landry's play calling. This is Tom Landry. I mean, number one, how dare you? Number two, you're wrong. Now, absolutely appalled, was looking for an excuse to get him out of there. However, then came the savings and loan crisis, and the partnership headed by Bum Bright was forced to sell the team. And on February the 25th, the year 1989, for $150 million, the winds of change and the comedy of the universe blew that man right there, quite possibly a true agent of chaos, Jerry Jones purchased the Dallas Cowboys, as I said, in February of 1989 for $150 million. And old Jerry's been there ever since. We're going to take a pause for this, because you know what's going to happen. Now we're up to the 80s. You know exactly what's going to happen. Because it's going to be, it's Jerry Jones in a nutshell. And the one thing you can say about Jerry Jones, the guy is loony, but the man loves football and money. We'll get to that in a moment. Man, winding down the beer. God, that's good. The warmer it gets, like malt sweetness is coming out. Now it's getting good. That little bitterness is lasting a little longer. Oh, that's good. All right, so where were we? Oh, yeah. So the first thing Jerry Jones does is fire Tom Landry. In the near 30 years of the Cowboys' existence, the only head coach that any Dallas Cowboys fan had ever known. Tom Landry is now fired. He is replaced by a man by the name of, Jimmy Johnson, who turned out to be a great coach, fantastic hair. And if anybody remembers I think it was some commercial they were talking about, I have the Jimmy Johnson thermos. It's like, yeah, but mine's got the lifelike hair. But in any event, who also weirdly was Jerry Jones' teammate at the University of Arkansas, by the way. May or may not have had something to do with it. Who's to say? So anyways, in comes Jimmy Johnson, and then the Herschel Walker trade. What a fiasco. What a cluster. What a thing the Herschel Walker trade was. But that gave Dallas a lot of draft capital. And they drafted a dynasty. That guy Emmitt Smith, yep, he was one of those draft picks. They added a ton of players. Plus, there was still a few holdovers from the Landry days. That, Michael Irvin, a lot of guys. And Dallas, in the weirdly short time, that Jimmy Johnson was head coach, it was really 1989 to 1993. It wasn't that long. He won 2 Super Bowls back-to-back, 1992 and 1993. And here's the kicker. One of the first things that Jerry Jones did to shock the sports world, upon winning his second consecutive Super Bowl, because of creativity differences, whatnot, he fired Jimmy Johnson. Hall of Fame coach, by the way. We should point out, because he is. And since then, unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys have had kind of a revolving door of coaches. And this is the point of the story where, not going to put it all up there because it's just far too many. So after Jimmy Johnson leaves in 1993, here we go. Barry Switzer, 1994 to 1997. It was in that 1995 season. It doesn't make my eye twitch at all. In the Super Bowl in Tempe, Arizona. The first time Zach ever got to see the Steelers in the Super Bowl. He got to watch that game. Eye doesn't twitch at all. However, it came out later, and this is actually really funny, that Jerry Jones made a plea to God. Said, if you deliver unto me a Super Bowl against the Steelers, I will never ask for anything else. Well, I'm wondering if it was God that heard that call or if it was intercepted by somebody else, because yes, we all know Dallas did indeed win that Super Bowl. And they haven't been back to the NFC Championship since. So, universe, you're welcome. The Steelers will take the cheers on that one. But that said, Barry Switzer didn't last long. He's gone in 97. Then 1998 comes along. In comes Chan Gailey. He's there 98, 99. He's gone. And in comes Dave Campo. He's there from 2000 to 2002. He's gone. Then you get the big tuna himself, Bill Parcells. Came in 2003 to 2006. Then he's gone. In comes Wade Phillips, 2007 to 2010, the son of legendary Houston Oilers coach Bum Phillips. He's there 4 years, 2010, he's gone. Jason Garrett comes in, he gets a stint, 2010 to 2019, and then all of a sudden Jason Garrett's gone. In came Mike McCarthy, 2020 to 2024. Boom, he's gone, and now we are in the Brian Schottenheimer era, son of the late, great, absolutely legendary coach Marty Schottenheimer. So we'll see what's going on. Tumultuous history, born out of spite, dealings with the devil, and Jerry Jones. I'm sorry, but that's a movie unto itself. However, you do have to say one thing. For the 9th consecutive year, the year 2025, the 9th consecutive year, and actually the first time any team has ever surpassed this mark, the Dallas Cowboys, for 9 consecutive years, are still the most valuable sports franchise, not in the country, in the world. Dominant. And this is coming from Forbes magazine. They are worth an estimated, in 2025, $10.1 billion, with a B, dollars. That is the first time in history any sports franchise has ever eclipsed, what would that be? So million is 6, so 100 million, 9, 10, 11. That is the first time a sports franchise has surpassed the 11-figure mark in terms of value and worth. And if anybody's curious, the second place team is valued at $8.8 billion. That would be the Golden State Warriors of the NBA. So like I say, we're going to finish this off, and we'll give the cheers, then we'll finish it off. And I will say, begrudging respect to the Dallas Cowboys, born out of a spiteful Hollywood movie plot. I'm sorry, but that it really, to me, it just doesn't get much better than that. So, as much as I was under protest at the beginning of this, when I realized the Steelers are basically a complete dog's breakfast, because that's what they do. That's what they've been doing since 2018. People can say what they want, but history will prove that the bitter, jaded Zach was right. So I see on my phone we've just hit the 25-minute mark, and my God, this time has flown. It weirdly has been a fun one. This was a lot of fun. It's a team that's been around a long time. I did not realize how crazy of a history it was. Got to have a beer I've never had before, Texas beer. So salute to Texas. And actually, I do like some Shiner stuff. I wish, though, we used to sell it back in the day, but licensing, if you ever, look at the beer industry or know anything about it, depending on the state, everything it's very regulated. So it could be, it could be, whatever's allowed to be sold in the state changes from year to year. And we used to sell Lone Star beer, but we don't anymore, unfortunately. But I'm going to raise my glass and say, in English this time, hopefully Freedom Sufferer hasn't come for me, but I don't know if he's seen the other one yet. Cheers, my friends. If you're having one along with me, cheers again. And we finished that. Now I'm going to go and really wish I had a giant pretzel. The tease for next week. Next week, it's going to be a combination of VR and weird comic book talk. It is a VR for Alex Big Blue. He has a 500 sub VR contest going out right now. And basically what I'll be talking about is, and I think this is going to be interesting. I'm going to have some fun with it. There's going to be some good pictures, and there's going to be Zach probably being an idiot on camera again for 20 minutes or so. And, let's be honest. Between you, me, and the grand piano, that's what everybody really comes here for. So that is going to do it. So we're going to see you guys next Friday. We'll see how that goes. And I'm going to leave you with this parting thought. When you add milk to cereal, is the milk now a beverage, a sauce, or a broth? Have a good night, everybody.